What happens aback America's best able announcer collides with the aristocratic family's best arguable export. At first, it looks like aloof edition, prime-time sit-down, a adequate studio, affable greetings, and the apparition of civility. But, below the balmy lights of CNN, Anderson Cooper didn't appear to comedy along, and Meghan Markle didn't appear to be humbled. She came armed with defiance, dismissive smiles, and that aciculate bend of arms that has polarized audiences worldwide. What began as a chat-bound, angry into combat, exact fencing, Area 1 ancillary wielded facts and the added wielded attitude. By the time the masks slipped, the Apple had witnessed article far added than an interview. They had witnessed a reckoning. The CNN flat gleamed beneath the anxiously calibrated lights. Aggregate about the set was pristine. Anderson Cooper, the bright alignment of his cue cards, the advised calmness of the camera's cat and mouse to abduction every angle. Beyond from him sat Meghan Markle, altogether poised, legs crossed, her bright beard communicable the ablaze like a halo. She offered that convenant smile that had graced endless annual covers, the smile that seemed advised to conciliate and charm. "Meghan," Anderson began smoothly, "thank you for abutting us tonight." "Of course," she said, her accent sweet, but abstemious with article faintly performative. It's consistently candid to sit bottomward with absolute journalists. Anderson bent the attenuate jaw in her words but didn't bite. He alone absorbed his arch in acknowledgement. "Let's activate with article simple. How are you and Harry doing?" For a cursory second, Meghan's smile froze, an about ephemeral shift. Afresh, she leaned back slightly, exuding a accidental air. "We're fine. We're thriving. Stronger than ever, actually, in animosity of what the tabloids would adulation for bodies to believe." Her articulation agitated a aciculate bend now, anniversary affricate able to complete definitive, akin defensive. Anderson nodded, advancement a abiding gaze. There except been rumors, some suggesting that there's a striction in the marriage, that Harry struggles with actuality so far removed from his family, and that rumors, Meghan cut in with the ablaze laugh, admitting the amusement was brittle. "Do you absolutely appetite to decay your time giving oxygen to gossip?" "Honestly, Anderson, I'd apprehend bigger of you." The flat audience, arrived guests built in abaft the cameras, confused uncomfortably. The adjournment was pointed about disrespectful. Anderson, however, remained the account of composure. "I accept your annoyance with rumors," he said evenly, "but allotment of the public's absorption lies in how you both are adjusting, accustomed the actual accessible footfall you took abroad from aristocratic life. Isn't it fair to ask how you're abyssal those changes?" Meghan's smile tightened. "Navigating." She afresh as admitting, tasting the word. "We don't navigate. We lead. We've fabricated choices that serve our happiness, our truth. If bodies can't handle that, conceivably they should stop bulging. Their dejection assimilate us." The words rang with condescension. What was meant to be an acknowledgement articulate added like a rebuke. Anderson's announcement didn't flicker. He confused his cards slightly. A movement so attenuate it was about a bashful challenge. "So, let's allocution about choices then," he continued. "You've been articulate about your difficulties with the aristocratic family. You've declared activity unsupported, akin silenced, but you've additionally congenitally actual acknowledged Belvedere back dispatch away. Podcasts, alive deals, book contracts. Critics altercate that you've leveraged the actual academy you condemn. What would you say to them?" Meghan aged her head, the smile returning, colder this time. "I'd say those critics should try walking a mile in my shoes before they accomplish apprentice judgments." "I don't apologize for surviving, Anderson. I don't apologize for authoritative active afterwards actuality cut off." Her accent had developed sharper, louder. What had amorphous as a chat was already ambiguous into confrontation. Anderson leaned forward, articulation calm and measured. But Meghan, it wasn't as if you were larboard destitute. You had a acknowledged acting career afore Harry. He has affiliated wealth. The perception, fair or not, is that the anecdotal of banking attempt doesn't adjust with reality. How do you accommodate that? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Perception, she said, about spitting the word. That's the problem, isn't it? Anybody thinks their advantage to essay our lives like characters in a play. They don't apperceive the truth. They don't apperceive what we sacrificed. Anderson let the blackout breathe for a moment. Absolution, the admirers feel the weight of her indignation, afresh, softly. What absolutely did you sacrifice, Meghan? The catechism landed like a bean alone in still water. For the aboriginal time, Meghan hesitated. Her aperture parted, but the words came slower now, beneath rehearsed. Privacy, she said finally. Peace, the appropriate to a live afterwards actuality, broken afar, circadian by bodies who except never akin met us. Anderson nodded thoughtfully, but there was a beam of animate in his dejected eyes. Yet actuality you are sitting in advanced of millions cogent your adventure on your terms. Does that not belie the admiration for privacy? Meghan bristled. It's not contradiction. It's control. We accept what to share. That's our right. Of course, Anderson agreed smoothly, but that additionally makes you accessible abstracts who can be questioned on the choices you make. You can't ask for aloofness and additionally command a all-around spotlight afterward scrutiny. That's the antithesis journalism demands. The admirers hummed with tension. Meghan, beyond her legs, added tightly, her easily clasping calm in her lap. The affectation of agreeableness was abrasion, and article colder was seeping through. Balance, she echoed, her articulation decrepit disdain. Funny, Anderson. You allocution about balance, yet you sit there with the aforementioned complacent. Ascendancy, as every added man who's any time approved to abate me. The words hit like a bang in the quiet studio. Anderson blinked already slowly, but his articulation remained calm, akin, gentle. I'm not abbreviating you, Meghan. I'm captivation you accountable. There's a difference. Her beam was sharp, humorless. Answerable to whom? To you? To the columnist that twists every chat I say? Too accessible that's already fabricated up its apperception about me. Anderson didn't accession his voice. He didn't charge to. Answerable to the truth, he said simply. The blackout that followed was deafening. The aperture act of what was declared to be an abstinent altercation had already afire into a battle match. And for the aboriginal time, Meghan's able accord looked fragile. The cameras formed smoothly, but the atmosphere central the CNN flat had shifted. The able amenity of the aperture had evaporated. Abrogation article raw, article added volatile. Anderson Cooper sat composed, pen assertive amid his fingers, while Meghan Markle's aspect grew taut, her agreeableness bottomward into irritation. Anderson's abutting agenda was deliberate. He didn't glance at it. He already knew the question. Meghan, let's allocution about Harry. He's announced generally about the assessment this has taken on him, the ambit from his family, the accident of the aggressive roles he already admired so deeply. How was he adjusting? Meghan's announcement froze for an atom of a second. Afresh came the accomplished smile, admitting bluff now, like bottle beneath light. Harry is thriving. He's never been happier. Actually, we've congenital activity that assuredly reflects our values. So, no, Anderson. He's not acquisitive for the past, if that's what you're insinuating. Anderson nodded calmly. I'm not insinuating, Meghan. I'm asking. There are reports. Reports? Meghan cut in, her accent clipped. From which tabloids? The aforementioned ones that except stalked us, area about us, and profited from our suffering. Please, we don't adorn rumors. The admirers confused again, analysis the chaw in her words. Anderson, unshaken, connected in that steady, surgical voice. Not aloof tabloids. There except been whispers from those abutting to the ancestors suggesting, Harry feels isolated, bent amid two worlds. Do you accede that's a possibility? Meghan's eyes narrowed. Do you accede that maybe Harry makes his own choices? That maybe, aloof maybe, a developed man can adjudge for himself area he's happiest, or do you adopt the anecdotal that I somehow ascendancy him? Anderson leaned advanced slightly, his articulation low, calm but belted with apparent firmness. It's not about control, Meghan. It's about the actuality that afore you, Harry was one of the best admired associates of the aristocratic family. He had a role, a purpose, a abysmal affiliation with the British public. A back dispatch away, abundant of that has eroded. So, it's a fair question. Has your alliance amount him added than it's accustomed him? The catechism afraid in the air, like a live wire. Meghan's jaw anchored, and for the aboriginal time her articulation absurd with heat. That is insulting. We are partners, equals. Harry didn't lose anything. He acquired freedom. He acquired love. He acquired me. Anderson's boring. Didn't waver, and in exchange he absent his family, his titles, his country's affection. Was that a barter account making? Meghan's beam was aciculate and humorless. You complete like one of those absinthian royalists who thinks the acme is sacred. Let me admonish you, Anderson, we're not active in the 18th century. Harry doesn't. Charged to bow and scrape for anyone's approval. There was an oral babble from the flat audience, her words, decrepit with disdain, landed like a bang blow. Anderson inhaled slowly. Advancement his poise. Let's axis, then. Afore Harry, you had a acknowledged acting career. Abounding bodies knew you from suits. Do you any time affliction abrogation that behind? Walking abroad from a able character of your own? Meghan agee her head, smirking faintly. Regret? Hardly. I outgrew it. Playing dress-up on a TV set is annihilation, compared to the appulse I fabricated on a all-around stage. I didn't barter bottomward Anderson. I traded up. The airs in her accent was unmistakable. Anderson's brows rose slightly, but his articulation remained even. Some ability altercate you traded ability for notoriety. That you went from actuality, Meghan Markle, actress, to Meghan and Markle, Amazon of Sussex, authentic primarily by your husband's name. Meghan's accord absurd again. That's sexist and reductive. I am added than my husband's wife. Of course, Anderson said smoothly. But afterwards, Harry, would you be sitting actuality on this date in advance of millions? Would Netflix and Spotify accept offered those contracts? Would publishing houses accept chased your story? Meghan's aperture anchored into a tenuate line. Her voice, aback it came, was colder. You acutely don't accept who I am. I've consistently had influence. I've consistently had presence. The apple. Aloof wasn't accessible to exceed it until I affected them to. Anderson let the blackout stretch, his calm abode alone acid the adverse with her assent hostility. Afresh, he asked cautiously but pointedly, or did the apple alone noticed because of the acme absorbed to your name? The draft landed. Meghan's eyes flashed and her animation bent audibly in the microphone. She leaned advanced now, her accent above board confrontational. You don't get to adjudge my worth, Anderson, and frankly, your band of analytic is insulting. Anderson leaned back, absolutely composed, his articulation bottomward into that calm, advised accent that had dismantled presidents and CEOs alike. I'm not chief your worth, Meghan. I'm allurement if the account you affirmation was absolutely becoming or borrowed. The admirers collectively inhaled, the astriction now electric. Meghan's smile was gone, replaced with article colder, acrimony abstemious with fear. The cracks in her anxiously complete armor were alpha to show, and for Anderson, that was the aboriginal assurance that the absolute account had alone aloof. Her begun. The flat air had developed heavy. Meghan Markle sat adamant in her chair, aperture apprenticed into a tenuate line, her beforehand appearance of agreeableness bare away. Anderson Cooper, by contrast, remained the account of composure. His addendum adequate neatly on the desk, but he hardly bare them. He had the accent of a man who knew absolutely area this account was headed. And Meghan could feel it. "Meghan," he began evenly, "let's abode what so abounding bodies are wondering. You've announced about the affliction of your time in the aristocratic family, but you've additionally enjoyed all-around acceptance because of it. Afterwards that platform, afterwards the Crown's name, do you accept the apple would still be alert to you now?" Meghan's eyes narrowed. "So what? Your adage I'm extraneous. Afterwards them?" Anderson didn't flinch. "I'm adage your articulation was amplified by the Academy you criticize. That's not judgment, it's fact." She leaned forward, her accent sharp. "And I accept. You anticipate. I should accept, backward silent. Endured racism, endured actuality, abandoned. Aback, I begged for advice aloof so the monarchy's spotless angel could break intact. The admirers confused in their seats, analysis her assent hostility. Anderson's tone, however, remained maddeningly calm. I anticipate there's a aberration amid speaking accuracy to ability and architecture, a cast about grievance. Abounding bodies. Admired your antecedent courage, but now some feel the adventure has become careful crafted." Meghan let out a absinthian laugh. "Selective? That's rich. Anderson, you sit there in your big-ticket clothing abaft your board with your advantage and acquaint me how to acquaint my story." Anderson's eyes never wavered. Advantage is actuality built into absolution with palaces, staff, and all around. Adoration. And yet, the British public, who already accustomed you with accessible arms, now seems disconnected at best. Why do you anticipate that is? Her jaw tightened. Because the British media berserk them adjoin me. It's that simple. Anderson leaned in slightly, articulation firm but calm. Is it that simple? Or did the public's amore air-conditioned afterwards decisions you made? Walking abroad from duties, criticizing the Queen's Academy while still application its titles, moving to America, signing advantageous media deals. Meghan's eyes flashed. We had to move. We had to assure ourselves. From what? Anderson asked softly. From scrutiny? From responsibilities you agreed to aback you affiliated into that family? The words cut like glass. Meghan's anxiously maintained. Ascendancy faltered. Her articulation rising. Responsibilities. You beggarly servitude. You beggarly animated and bouncing while actuality advised like a burden. That's not a life, Anderson. That's a prison. Anderson let the blackout stretch. Afresh asked the catechism anybody in the allowance had been cat and mouse for. Did Queen Elizabeth alone abuse you? Meghan hesitated. A beam of adding flickered beyond her face. Afresh came the dismissive smile. I accept annihilation but account for the backward queen, she said. The words clipped, rehearsed. But the arrangement, she embodied, it was archaic, it was suffocating. Anderson's articulation, acicular any time, so slightly. So it wasn't her personally. It was the system, the monarchy. Exactly, Meghan said quickly as if adequate to ballast herself in safer territory. Anderson nodded. And yet, it's the absolution that gave you the platform, the attention, the influence. Afterwards you were a acknowledging extra on a cable show. With it, you became a all-around figure. Does that not complicate your narrative? Her accord snapped. I don't charge a acme to matter, Anderson. I never did. The absolution bear me added, then I bear them. I was the beginning heir, the diversity, the change they couldn't aftermath on their own. Gasps bouncing through the audience. The airs in her accent was undeniable. Anderson's aperture apprenticed into a attenuate, abstinent line. That may be how you see it, but from the out-seated, it looks different. The absolution has existed for centuries. You were there for beneath than 2 years before walking away. Do you absolutely accept you afflicted it, or did it change you? Her beam was sharp, defensive. Eye-opened eyes. Eye-apparent truths. That's added. Than best could accept done. Anderson leaned back in his chair, boring steady. Or, conceivably, you austere bridges and alleged it revolution. The blackout that followed was crushing. Meghan's chest rose and fell quickly, her acrimony almost concealed. The admirers sat frozen, bent in the tension. Anderson confused his notes but didn't attending bottomward at them. Let's move to your accommodation to achieve in America. Some say it's hypocritical. You larboard Britain citation a admiration for privacy, but actuality you've pursued podcasts, interviews, documentaries, Anniversary 1 amplifying the actual absorption you affirmation to despise. How do you accommodate that? Meghan's articulation dripped disdain. It's alleged survival, Anderson. We were cut off. We had to accommodate for ourselves. Unlike the institution, Cypher pays our bills anymore. Anderson's countenance aerial slightly, his articulation still maddeningly polite. Except, of course, the alive giants who paid tens of millions for your story. That doesn't absolutely scream hardship. Meghan's cheeks ablaze red. How cartel you abate aggregate we've endured to money? You anticipate it's about wealth. It's about security, dignity, attention, our children. Anderson's acknowledgement was surgical. Attention your accouchement or attention your brand. The draft landed hard. Meghan froze, aperture parting, but no words coming. For the aboriginal time, she looked absolutely rattled. Anderson let the blackout adhere afore speaking again, cautiously but decisively. Meghan, you larboard 1,000-year-old academy claiming you capital peace, but what you've congenital looks beneath like a chord and added like a business. The admirers erupted into a low murmur. Analysis the account ambageous into alarming. Territory. Meghan's face hardened, but her articulation befuddled with indignation. You don't get to ascertain me, she snapped. You don't get to adjudge what my activity means. Anderson's boring was unflinching. I don't charge to. The apple is watching, and they see the contradictions. The restriction was now unbearable. The account that began with smiles had become a battlefield, and Meghan Markle was accident arena with every question. The flat was bashful except for the aside hum of the lights. Meghan Markle sat durably in her chair, her easily bound acutely. In her lap, her duke pale. The bright accord that had agitated her through so abounding interviews was gone, replaced with flashes of acrimony and agilely buried panic. Anderson Cooper, still calm and deliberate, leaned advanced as admitting. He were analytic a case in accessible court. Meghan, he began, articulation measured. You've announced about actuality silenced, about suffering, about abrogation in academy that bootless you. But let's be honest, with anniversary added and with the admirers at home. Would we be sitting actuality? Appropriate now if you hadn't affiliated Prince Harry? The catechism hit like a thunderclap. The admirers collectively inhaled. Meghan's eyes flashed, but she affected a smirk. So now your adage I'm annihilation afterwards him. How actual predictable. Anderson's boring didn't waver. I'm adage that your absolute accessible identity, your all-around influence, your Netflix deals, your book contracts, all axis from one fact. You affiliated into the best acclaimed ancestors in the world, and a back abrogation that family, you've congenital a career criticizing it while still trading on its name. Isn't that true? Meghan's articulation rose, aciculate and defensive. That's an abundantly sexist affair to say. I had a career afore Harry. I was acknowledged afore Harry. I mattered afore Harry. Anderson's acknowledgment was a scalpel delivered with adverse calm. Yes, Meghan. You were an extra on a mid-tier cable show. Talented, perhaps, but not globally known. You became a domiciliary name the moment you put on that adornment and absolved into Windsor. That's not sexism. That's reality. Her aperture opened, but no words came. The blackout betrayed her. Anderson apprenticed on, his accent never rising. Anniversary chat added acid than the last. You fabricated millions from interviews, documentaries, podcasts, all on the back of a name you affirmation to despise. You say you were silenced, yet no one has announced added than you. You say you capital privacy, yet you've lived in the spotlight by choice. You say you were powerless, yet you've leveraged astronomic ability and abstraction the narrative. Meghan, do you see the contradiction? Her accord absurd fully. You don't accept what I've been through, she snapped, her articulation abashed now. You don't accept the pain, the isolation, the fear. You sit there, anticipation me like you apperceive my life, but you don't. Anderson leaned back, his face grave. I accept what you've told us, and what I see as a woman who wants all the allowances of ability with none of the responsibilities. A woman who says she's independent, but whose belvedere collapses afterwards Harry's name. Strip abroad the crown, the titles, the connections, and what's left. Meghan's lip quivered. She approved to abiding herself, but her articulation broke. I am added than his wife. I am added than a duchess. She faltered, her eyes glistening. I am. Her words attenuated into silence. And then, to the shock of anybody in the room, Meghan's eyes abounding with tears. She angry her face away, blinking rapidly, her anxiously composed persona ballyhoo beneath the weight of the questions. The admirers sat frozen, borderline whether to benevolence her or acclaim Anderson. Anderson's voice, still close but brave, with finality, cut through the tension. Meghan, this isn't cruelty. This is accountability. You've fabricated accusations adjoin able bodies who cannot avert themselves publicly. You've profited from those accusations, and aback asked for specifics, for facts, for evidence. You abatement aback on emotion. That may win sympathy, but it doesn't acknowledgment the questions. Meghan befuddled her head, tears rolling now. You don't apperceive what it's like. None of, you know. Anderson exhaled slowly, afresh angry his eyes against the camera. His closing words agitated the force of a verdict. Ladies and gentlemen, you've aloof apparent what happens aback accessible narratives accommodated adamantine questions. Meghan Markle came actuality tonight to acquaint her adaptation of the story, but journalism is not about versions. It's about truth, and sometimes the accuracy is uncomfortable. The camera boring zoomed in on his face as he delivered the final blow. Titles and acclaim can amplify a voice, but they cannot alter substance. And afterwards, Harry's name, Meghan Markle, would not be sitting actuality tonight. The words landed like a gavel. Meghan's arch dropped, amateur abashed, as Anderson placed his pen neatly on the desk. This interview, he said quietly, is over. The awning cut to black, abrogation millions of admirers stunned. Some acquainted sympathy, others vindication, but all knew they had aloof witnessed one of the best atomic interviews in CNN history. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't balloon to accident that like button, hit subscribe, and arena the notification alarm so you never absence edition adventure like this. We've got affluence-added atomic interviews, celebrity meltdowns, and behind-the-scenes confrontations advancing your way. Because aback able bodies face boxy questions, you never apperceive how its activity, too.